How are you, sir?
How are you, sir?
And miss.
And
Good
ma'am.
morning. How are you, sirs?
It's good to have you here again.
Yes,
And
I'm
with your
happy to be
special
here.
glasses, I love them.
Oh,
I keep saying I got to do the same thing with mine, but I don't know. I think we need to. I think
Maybe
we need to
not.
keep you with the red glasses and me with the black frames. I think that will look good. Well, I want to say thank you to Leo for having us here again. Super happy and excited to be here. Today we have a special surprise.
Awesome.
You know how much we love surprises.
I love surprises.
Yeah, we have a special guest. But before we start, I want to say welcome to another edition of Prosperando Show, the show where we bring you topics and themes and talk about and have conversations about, just like the name of the show implies, how to prosper, how to get ahead in life. And so today, like I said before, we have a special guest that is going to talk to us specifically about some of the struggles, challenges, and successes that they have lived through their enterprising journey. And I want them to spend a little bit of time talking about that. My co-host, Tanya, here today, actually knows our guest very well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about our guest, and then we'll introduce our guest formally to the show.
Sure. So first, thank you for having me here. And I am very excited about our guest. Our guest is Zuleika. Zuleika and I met through a business transaction. So, that's interesting because we've spoken about connections before and networking. And we quickly just hit it off. We were so young and we were both in business. And she has just been a very incredible presence in my life because she is extremely inspirational. I have seen her go through some amazing, just a lot of challenges that she just not only went through them, but she just kind of cleared paths and said, I'm coming through. And she's a trailblazer. And she's definitely an inspiration. So I'll let her tell her story. But what I can just basically say, the reason why it's just sometimes people have challenges in life, and the challenges that she's been through have been really rough. And so to go through them with grace, to go through them leaving a sense of basically a trail for others to follow, and always inspiring people that you can get through things and that life is bigger than you, and that whatever's happening is not what determines who you are, but just something you're going through, to me has been very, very great to have a living person talk about that. So I'll let you tell your story, but we'll start by saying that it was a business that she was starting.
Perfect.
That was the seed.
That's a great segue into presenting Zuleika. But before we begin, I just want to say, if you have not downloaded the application Los Radio, please go ahead and do so. Go ahead and look us up there. Prosperando Show is one of the many shows that are in this network of different shows and different podcasts that are broadcasted through the network of Los Radio. Since we're here on YouTube, please don't forget to give this video a like if you like it. Please don't forget to share it. Like Leo always says, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your enemies. You make friends with them. Why not, right? This is what it's all about. It's about sharing content that really helps all of us prosper, like the name of the show implies. And don't forget to subscribe. Now, getting back to our guest, Zuleika.
Hello.
Pleasure to have you.
It's great to be with you here. This is a fantastic place. I'm so glad to see you both here sharing with the Hispanic and the community worldwide about different ways that we can come together and prosper.
Oh, excellent. So I love it. I love it when a guest uses the name of the show.
Yes.
In their spiel. I love it. It's
Well,
great.
she lives it. You'll see.
So why don't you tell us, your full name is Zuleika Hines.
Yes, my full name is Zuleika Hines, and my maiden name was Zuleika Fertulian.
Oh, okay.
So I was happy to shorten my last name to Zuleika Hines.
And what is it that the business that Tanya mentioned before? What sort of business is it, and what do you do there? And you just walk us through a little bit of background info on the business.
Yes, well, I was downtown for September 11 when September 11 happened. And so when I met Tanya, I was in the process of buying a condo
Okay.
in downtown Jersey City, because working with American Express, they had relocated us to downtown Jersey City.
Okay.
But at the same time, I had a burning desire within me to open up my own business and to start my own entrepreneurship concept. And after I toiled with different thoughts and different ideas, all the way from opening a car wash to going online and going to Mexico and importing party favors from there, I came back to my roots, which was education.
Okay.
My mother had been my 5th grade teacher, and my father was almost my high school teacher, which would have killed my social life. No social life for me whatsoever.
Wait. Hold on. Let me see if I get this straight. Your mother was actually your teacher.
Yes.
So you had to see her in school, and then you had to come home and
See her grading the papers, yes. It was not a good thing.
and you couldn't say my dog ate my homework because she'd know.
No.
Okay.
Exactly. That
We
was-
don't have a dog.
we didn't have a dog, and there was no way to escape it.
Oh my goodness.
And so being inspired at the time after September 11th to really pursue that dream, I had already started to look for a location
Okay.
to open a childcare program.
Okay.
And so I had the map of downtown Jersey City mapped out. I knew every prospect builder. I knew every construction going up. But that's not where God wanted me to be.
Okay.
One day I took the wrong ferry from Manhattan.
Okay.
And I ended up in Hoboken. And I ended up in North Hoboken by the shipyard. At the time, the place still smelled like coffee because the Maxwell House factory was still there. The T building was still the Till building. It was still apartments. It's still a little seated. It was still evolving, not what it is now. And finally, I said to myself, this may be the place for me. So I went in and I got the name of this lady named Hope. I'm like, well, you have to give me hope. I've been seeing 10 different places. I got so many no's. I've been to so many sites already. We're not even ready for the next 10 years. And I'm ready now. Like I was ready to start a business. But I always had it in the back of my head. You're going to get 10 no's before you get a yes. So I just lean into that. I just lean into the idea that if you want it, if you really pursue it with a passion, you can get there. Now, mind you, I never taught in a school except helping my parents. I never built anything in my life except with some popsicle sticks, and I barely remember that experience. So here I'm there with a business plan telling the owner of this luxury building, I want to take your most beautiful space in front of the waterfront overlooking the Empire State Building and build my school. Well, she took me to a meeting that had on the top floor with a long, long table. Hope, the realtor, came with me. And here's Mr. Goldman looking at me and saying, so what do you plan to do with my space? I'm like, well, here's my business plan. And he goes, so what do you want to do with my place? Well, see, it came back to me and they said, well, if you could get the funding for it, we'll take a chance and let you build here. Now, that's another story, getting the funding. I had a house that I bought when I was 25 years old that I lived in the basement because I couldn't afford the mortgage, so I rented it out. I did the Poorman bookshelf. You know the Poorman's bookshelf? You buy cylinder blocks, you buy 2x4, and you stain it. And the cylinder blocks become places to put muñequitos. You put your little candles, your tchotchkes. I had the Poorman library in my basement of the house.
That's industrial cool today.
Yes, it is.
So I just became modern. I didn't know I was trailblazing my bookshelf, right?
You were trending.
I was trending before trending was even possible, right? And so I said, okay, so now what's next, right? I need to get funding. And every bank was turning me down because I never built anything in my life. I had an MBA, but I didn't have a degree in education. I had a probable space, but I still never built anything. I was going solo. I didn't have somebody underwriting the loan or co-signing the loan. I was completely private, so it was no government funding. So what do you do next? Well, I prayed. I pray a lot. And here I called Commerce Bank. At the time, they were not TD Bank now.
Right.
And they were in New Jersey by, what was it, over by going towards almost New York, going towards the Catskills. They were in a small town there. They had their headquarters. So here comes Jeff Burley with his partner. And I say to them, it was a beautiful day. and it was blue sky. The Empire State Building was there. Boats were sailing up and down the Hudson River. And I said to them, if you shake my hand right now, I promise you, I will turn down every single bank and just go with you.
Speak with confidence. I love it.
Every single bank had already turned me down. This was my only hope. And they shook my head.
Excellent.
And it was only 3 walls because at that time the Sopranos were negotiating the other half of the retail space. So they had majority stake on how much space they were going to take. So there started my journey. And I started building my school, and I ended up generally contracting my school and opening it 2 months ahead of schedule.
Wow.
And with 600 people on the waiting list before
my
I opened my
goodness.
doors.
Wow.
It
And
was one of the first big daycares in Hoboken,
it
correct?
was one of the first big daycares in Hoboken, in the north location of Hoboken, and everyone felt sorry for me. Oh my goodness, I feel so bad for you. All the schools are downtown Hoboken. All the private schools are downtown, and you're here by yourself. And I didn't see that because I would do my marketing going to the laundromat. I would see how many mothers were washing clothes, and I would see how many strollers were walking by. And I had transportation in front of my window. Everybody had to come to my location to take the ferry to cross the river. And at the time, after September 11th, the ferry became very popular.
Right.
And so I had this major amount of people walking by. And I knew that after you see couples with dogs, sooner or later you'll
Sooner or later.
you're going to see carriages and babies. And so that ended up being one of the ways that I built the school. And I remember one day being there, and a tall man comes in with a hat. I thought he played for the Jets because he had a Jet hat. He goes, my wife's been calling you for 3 months now, and you haven't been able to respond to her. I said, sir, I'm the general contractor. I am the GC. I am the assistant. I am the supply request person. And, we became friends. He had his son and his daughter in my program. And we were able to establish a very good relationship.
You said a lot in that,
Yes.
and I'm sure a very simplified version
Yes.
of your journey into opening the daycare center. Well, we haven't even gotten into what running the daycare center is
That's
like, right?
correct.
This was just the explanation on opening, but in that explanation that you just gave, I do see the trial and tribulations that you had to go through to just open the doors. I'm sure it wasn't easy.
No, it was not easy. I mean, I'm a woman. I became the first woman to have a business in the waterfront of Hoboken, from Jersey all the way to Fort Lee.
You're breaking all sorts of barriers there,
And I
huh?
wasn't even aware that I was doing so. Weehawken was not established as it is now. When I was trying to go to downtown Jersey City, they didn't want a child care in their buildings because they felt child care may ruin their spaces. I was asked to go to the basement or back of
my
a
goodness.
building. I had people that wanted me to come, but the building was not ready for me to be there. And so and then a financing component, not to mention building. I went to the town building department every single day for a month.
Everybody knew you.
No, they didn't
Oh,
even
okay.
talk to me yet.
Before they spoke to you.
Before they spoke to
Oh,
me.
wow.
I would go and sit at the building department. I would always bring a book. Don't forget, I was still working at American Express, and I was during my lunch hour. So I would rush there, and I would sit there so they could see my plans. And they were not ready to see my plans. The second time I went, they shut another project down because they didn't meet the requirements. And I would say, oh, I see that you're very busy right now. I'll be back tomorrow. And then I will come again. I said, I see that you're very busy again. Would you like me to get you some coffee? I came so often, I became part of the building. I became part of the people they saw. So sooner or later, they say, ma'am, how can I help you? I said, I thought you'll never ask. And that's how our relationship ensued. So it was a lot of patience. I was on a time constraint because I was still working full time. It was a lot of beating the streets, meaning that I would talk to people. I would go visit other programs. I would visit other people. I would confer with other educators to see how they felt and to build the concept. Because Hoboken was not where I thought I was going to be. I thought I was going to be in sexy Jersey City. It's evolving, it's growing. You have all these things happening in downtown Jersey City. But God wanted me in Hoboken. and with a Maxwell house that was still smelling coffee. And my building was the only building, along with the Starbucks building at the time, close to Washington, that was there. But after I opened my schools, it was like all the buildings just sprouted, and everything came around me.
So, just to give you perspective, she is literally on Sinatra Drive.
Okay.
And she is storefront.
Oh,
She
nice.
was not put in a basement. She was not put in the back of the building. She actually
Awesome.
was highlighted on that corner. I remember when I met you and we were talking about business, back then when you were talking about your numbers, we're like, do you understand the commitment you're putting yourself in? And her passion was bigger than every challenge. And she was like, yeah. And we're like, you understand that's like how long was your lease? It was
It
10
was
year?
a 10-year
10-year.
lease with another 3 5-year renewals.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was a ridiculous amount
It was
for that time.
Yes, at that time it was $12,000 a month.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
At the height of my program, I was spending about $45,000 just on leases.
Now remember, this is just a concept at this point. She has had no experience. She has had nothing other than just this dream. And then I remember you telling me it's going to work. And I was like, what makes you so confident? And it was the dogs. And she would say, people are walking their dogs. The babies will come.
Yes.
And Hoboken was
I've
not
heard
what
that
it was.
before,
Yeah.
but I've never actually witnessed or spoken to somebody that has applied that concept.
Oh,
right?
yes.
to a business that became extremely successful. It was remarkable to watch the whole thing because a lot of people would look at her that were business people looking at her like, you're out of your mind. She's going to go broke. This is going to be a complete failure. And she was like, no, it's not. With a smile, like, no, it's not. It's going to work.
So
Yes.
that is so awesome, right?
Yes.
To see somebody
Absolutely.
care so much and be so determined. I guess my question would be, what do you think that drive comes from? Or actually, why don't you tell us where that drive comes from?
It's really my roots.
Okay.
I grew up as a missionary,
Okay.
moving around every 2 years. And I remember being in 10th grade. My father was in New York looking for a job because we were relocated to a small town in Michigan, only cows and farmland. There was not even a McDonald's, a Dairy Queen and a diner and a Spotlight to help stimulate the economy of the town, right? A lot of tickets. Aside from that, I remember that my teacher in 10th grade submitted me to a competition.
Okay.
And the competition was called Optimism, A Way of Life. Now, when I was a child, every Friday my mother would read me a book called Cartas a mi hijo. And that book had everything to do with how to persevere, how to have good work ethics. And it will take scriptures, but it will take stories, and it will build on that. So here comes the night that I'm supposed to deliver this oral speech. And I have a rose in my hand. My mother gave me a dress that was too long, so we put a belt around it as young girls and hike up the dress a little bit.
Remember?
Yes. She had a neighbor, because she worked at nights, drive me, and the actual competition was at a library. And no one had told me that it was going to be presented to adults. So here I show the adults this rose. And I started the speech, what do you see, the flowers or the thorn? At the end of the speech, I said, it's not that life will not give you thorns. It's that you got to stay focused on the rose.
Oh.
And that I got a standing ovation. I won first prize. And that stayed with me my whole time. So one time when I got married very young and I was going through a divorce, and now I left a beautiful apartment and I'm in the basement rooming with the best roommate I could ever have, I had to write an essay to get into NYU. And it said, write about something that you failed at and how did you overcome that failure? And I'm stumped. I'm like, I've never failed at anything. And my girlfriend's like, well, you just got divorced and you're in the basement apartment with me. I said, yes, but if you learn from failure, it ceases to be failure. So anything you learn from is no longer failure. Failure is only when you stop learning from something. So those two things have stayed with me, and I continue to use that in my everyday life.
You strive for success.
Yes.
What do you think? What is success to you?
Success is the idea that you have to be ethical,
Okay.
be able to persevere despite the obstacles, and understand that everything shall pass. that tomorrow will be here, and that no matter how dire things are or how difficult things are, if you have faith, there will be a solution to the problem. And whatever you come out of, whatever appears to be either a rejection or a fall, is just really repositioning for success. Because we don't change because we're comfortable or we're happy. We change because we're pushed to purpose. We're pushed to a direction. We are propelled to seek something different. But if we stay stuck in the pain of that process, we don't get to see the beauty of what comes from that.
So you focus on the rose.
Yes.
Awesome.
Understanding that the thorns are just simply stepping ladders to the rose.
And
That's so beautiful.
I remember, my whole experience with knowing Zuli, the trajectory of like knowing her from like, this like really starry-eyed, like, oh, this is going to happen. And then actually seeing the manifestation of this actually developing into very successful school where eventually you were infant care through 5th grade, was it?
No, through first grade.
Through first grade. And you had how many students? Because then eventually you did go to South Hoboken.
Yes.
So you had North Hoboken, South Hoboken. How many students were in the school?
I had a total in my height about 175 students.
Wow.
But I always kept my capacity below the state capacity.
Okay.
I felt that if you provided quality and staff training, that you can overcome anything. And so one of the testaments to that is that one of the goals for me after I opened the school were two things. The first goal was that I wanted my staff to have medical coverage.
Okay.
And I wanted them to have good medical coverage. The second goal was for them to have a retirement plan. And so I was able to accomplish both within the first 3 years of the company. And the testimony of the teachers being able to use that to help their kids apply for school was so gratifying to me. But the medical coverage was really pivotal because that medical coverage, I was able to keep it even when I opened my third location. 10 years after September 11th, I contracted cancer. And I had multiple myeloma. But it was the same medical coverage that I gave my teachers that saved my life afterwards and allowed me to get the best treatment ever. So it goes back to the principles. If you do something well, if you take care of your team, if you train them and you support the ethos of what you're doing, everything else will fall into place.
I have to say, this was, her optimism is always this way. I've tried to catch Zuli off guard because I'm like, this is not real. Okay, she's spent time with my family, coming to my house, and I'm like, thinking I'm sneaking downstairs to go sneak on Zuli and find like, sleepy Zuli, maybe like upset Zuli, or like bad morning Zuli, and Zuli's there reading her book at like freaking, I don't know, 6 a.m.
Yeah.
She already read the book. She already made us breakfast. And she's like, good morning. Isn't it a beautiful day? You're like, where do you get this energy? But one of the hard moments for me as your friend was when she contracted cancer. And but Zuli was not, it wasn't hard because of what it was. It was hard because it was so hard to watch you being okay with it. Like the way that she presented to me was almost like, wait a minute, I have to process this because I can't understand how you just presented it to me. Because she calls me and she's like, Tanya, guess what? She would always call me. Guess what? Because she's always on an adventure. She's always got something going on. And I'm like, what's going on? Well, first we had like, how are you? What's been going on with family? And then she's like, guess what? And I'm like, what? She's like, I have cancer. And I was like, I didn't know how to take this. And I was like, wait, what? And she's like, no, it's going to be okay. And I said, I was just shocked. And then she said, it's going to be okay because, listen, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to start looking at wigs. And I'm going to be looking fabulous soon. So you got to come over and come help me shop for wigs. And I was like, I was in shock. I couldn't even, like, process. I was like, is this happening for real? Is this, like, serious? And when I saw her, your positivity is just amazing. And we've talked about this many times. It's, that conviction, that faith that you have, you really do believe in this optimism. And it's like a daily thing. And it was, going back to your school, watching you feed that to the little babies was so amazing because, that's all the kids do is just, they don't really look at the bad things unless you point it out to them. They don't see danger, right? They don't see bad. They don't see color. They don't see mean. They don't even know what mean is. You take their toy, they hit you. They didn't know they were mean. They gotta no, that's not okay. Or if somebody hits them, they're not mean. They just wanted your toy. They're so positive, and to watch you do that and kind of as an adult is so refreshing because I think, like you said, we lose that positivity. That
over time, I
optimism.
think we get taught by society and our surroundings, to kind of do away with a little bit of that positivity and become more realists, right?
Yes.
But interesting what you're saying. I mean, obviously you two know each other, but I'm beginning to know you now, and of course, I want to be part of your life going forward. Okay, so
Absolutely.
I love positivity.
Excellent.
It was a mutual friend that said, if you surround yourself with the type of people that you want to be like, just by being next to them within the next 5 years, you're going to be like them. So you're going to have me in your life for a while now. Ever since I heard that, I've now made it a point that every time I find somebody that I'm like, man, I want to be like that.
Absolutely.
I want to stay in touch with them. So much so that Tanya now joined the podcast, and that was
I
part
know.
of.
I love that.
But to what do you attribute this positivity, right? If we can call it that way, what do you think is where does it come from?
I'm a Christian, and I
Okay.
do believe in faith. And I do believe that the stories in the Bible are not just archaic stories, that those stories tell you about struggle and challenges, tell you about things that are difficult. People have been rejected, like Jacob, that thrown in the pit by his brothers, and still overcame that and forgave his brothers and fed them. Those stories are stories that really resonate still today. You can find similarities in our everyday living. So if you think that Jesus was rejected by his disciples and still came for us, how can we not be forgiven of each other? Who are we to pass judgment? We believe on a cell phone is going to touch a satellite and come back, and yet none of us has seen a satellite.
True.
And we believe in love, and yet we never seen or touched love. But we lost faith, and we lost faith in our stories and the Bible stories. And I feel that it's not about religion. Religion puts it in a box and tells you what to do, what not to do. It's about the true faith of what he walked. And I've always kept that with me. My father never had me get baptized in a religion if I didn't believe in it. And he was a pastor. He spoke 7 languages. He felt that you need to understand the stories and what Jesus did for you to move forward. And that faith stays with me. And I remember at times I had parents that came from different religions. I had parents that came from Israel. I had parents that came from Amsterdam. I had the ambassador's grandson of Bulgaria at my school. I had people that worked at the Israel embassy were coming to my school. I had a lot of prominent parents in my program, and despite all of that, they were comfortable with the fact that I had faith. I wasn't a person to push it on to
Right.
anyone. I feel that we don't need to be exclusive in the process of being inclusive. I feel that inclusivity is accepting people where they are, and that whatever they speak to, you got to respect that, but it doesn't mean that you got to reject it either, right? And so I feel inclusivity is being accepting of all of us, and the school embodied that. We embodied diversity of different cultures. We have families that were Muslim, and my staff was so diverse, and that was the beautiful. One of the trainings I gave my staff was that we all went to Ellis Island.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was to understand about the different cultures. Sometimes in the United States, we want to make it a lot of black and white and Hispanic. But white people have German and Italian, and they have Finland, they're Finnish, or they are Dutch. And so or German, I had teachers from those cultures. So by us being able to go to Ellis Island, we broadened ourselves. We were able to be accepting of all the things that we are. And I think that's important. I think that we need to be able to be a salad, my father would say. You don't have to lose a tomato or a lettuce because you're in a salad. You can still be who you are.
That's so beautifully
Be a
put.
salad.
The positivity stems from your faith. The
Yes.
positivity stems from you believe in that, there is more than just what we see today.
Absolutely.
There's a promised land. There's a promised place to get to.
Absolutely.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
I'm in awe
Thank
with
you.
with what you've the little bit that you've shared with us so far, to see the trajectory that you've gone through, to open up this place that ultimately became a success.
Yes.
We've talked a little bit about the place. We've talked a little bit about the child care facility. What was the name?
Beyond Basic Learning.
Beyond Basic Learning. So are you still part of Beyond Basic Learning?
No, I sold Beyond Basic
Oh.
Learning about 8 years ago, the first two.
Okay.
And by the way, the second location was very organic. The second location was my same landlord.
Okay.
He wanted me to, there was another school going on the second location, and for a year they could not get it off the ground. So I said, well, I'll be interested in taking over the space. So when I went and look at the space, I'm like, this is not a child center. Who's going to have an office in the window looking at the beautiful Hudson River? That's for children. Children should have the view. And
love it.
my parents don't drink from the water fountain. And so I said, no, this lease is not going to work. Again, my background is an MBA in finance. One of the things that I learned is not only how to enter a lease, is how to exit a lease, how to negotiate. And so I was able to renegotiate the terms. On my first school, I only got $245,000 from the SBA loan to build 3,742 square feet, of which $100,000 was my security deposit.
Oh my goodness.
So I literally back then only had less than $150,000 to build 4 classrooms, with each of them with bathrooms and kitchen areas, and do the whole space. So on the second location, I was so successful that Commerce Bank lent me money again without personal guarantee.
Huh?
This time, my first school became the guarantor of the second school. So I renegotiated the lease because the lease was horrible. I'm like, of course they're going to fail in the first year. This lease makes no sense. I want the same terms as my first year lease. And they acquiesced, and I built the second school. But this time it wasn't the town of Hoboken. It was the Department of Port Authority.
Ah.
So imagine being in a trailer with 12 men, and you're the only woman, showing plans on HVAC, lighting, plumbing, carpentry, and again, I'm GC. GC means being a general contractor for my own project. And so I'm managing the project.
But by now you have experience.
I have a little bit of experience. I know about rebarring, x-raying the slab. I learned about piles, which means that buildings that are on the waterfront are built on piles to be able to reach the core of the river, to reach the rock. I learned a lot about construction. So now I have the second school, and one of my parents wants me to open a school in India.
Oh.
And the same landlord wants me to open a school in downtown Jersey City now, where I initially wanted to be on the waterfront, overlooking the Statue of Liberty. And the building was beautiful. The view was gorgeous. And the place had 24 feet. But they wanted to have access to the airway, to 18 feet, while I was already in construction, in order to build in the event they wanted to build. So they were going to build a place for me, by the way. They were not going to charge me for it, and then they were going to charge me something nominal. But I decided it was not a place for me to go. So I said no. You got to know when to say no. And I had a third location that was being built in Brooklyn. So I said no to India because it was going to pull me into a place that I was not familiar with in terms of the laws and the cultures. I was not yet as familiar, and it was just me. And the place in Brooklyn was about to be opened. And the landlord in Brooklyn built a school for me and did not charge me, and we never met.
Wow.
It was all through a phone conversation. And so it goes to show you that, if something is meant for you, and if you're moving in the direction that is opening for you, it's going to open, and you just have to persevere and be prepared. Be prepared.
I do want to say one of the takeaways that I hope that people can take from this is that you are incredibly good at seeing opportunity and seizing it. It's like if something's available, you're like, let me check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's an opportunity that you think is worth pursuing, you're all over it. So the experience that she had with like learning the construction, with negotiating the contracts, with getting her MBA, had started way before Zuli was even doing a business. You had mentioned to me that you became one of the first women in American Express to take advantage of a program there.
Yes.
You had been one of the first women to take advantage of a program in college. Tell us a little bit about your how you got to college, because I think this is like it's so interesting and in a very like short way, because I think that that's so important, is that people learn that when there's opportunities, not to kind of see yourself, well, that opportunity is not for me, because you've been able to change people's minds to say, yeah, that's not for my department, but why? And I think that is remarkable.
When I was going to college, I was always wanting to study international business.
Okay.
That was my drive, international business. And I saw an opportunity under my undergraduate at Hofstra University to pursue a program in Mexico, but it was not part of my school. You know, when you go to college, there's different schools, School of Medicine, School of Laws, liberal arts program. This was part of the new school. And so I asked the professor, can I participate, and ask permission from my department to study in Mexico for that month. And so they said yes. And I ended up going and studying Mexico about the NAFTA and the treaty that was going on. So then when I got my MBA program, the law program had a program in France, and it was to study international business. So I asked for permission again. Can I go into the law program and study abroad? I was the only MBA student with a group of lawyers studying about the European Union. And at the end, I asked both of the departments, why was I the only one from my school to enter? They said I was the only one that ever asked permission.
Ah. You're the only one that asked.
That was the only one that asked. So it wasn't that they were closed to students, it's that no students pursued it. So I ended up kind of creating my own degree and creating my own program, so much so that when I got my MBA, I went to the National Black MBA Conference, the National Hispanic MBA Conference. So I would have a little index cards. For folks back then, we didn't have cell phones like we have now. I had index cards. And so I had index cards with different industries. By the time I landed there, I had already 10 interviews lined up.
Oh, my goodness.
By the time I then saw them again at the Hispanic MBA Conference, they're like, Zuleika Fortulian. I'm like, wait a minute, I spoke to you over the phone, and they had my name tag. And then I scheduled interviews with them. I ended up getting 5 job offers by the time I finished my MBA program at the time, of which I was either going to be in Minneapolis with an amazing bonus, about over $20,000 bonus package, or by that time, the CFO of IBM called me, Karen Fakuma at the time, and I ended up moving to Boston and working in the Boston department in a management program they created for me in business development. And I was the only woman in business development, only Hispanic minority woman at the time in business development when I moved to IBM in Cambridge, Massachusetts, while we were transforming Lotus into the IBM family.
So for those that are watching this video today that are thinking, I want to do something with my life, and they're obviously listening to this focus on positivity and this overwhelming sense of faith that you have, and how Tanya described that you see every challenge as an opportunity. What sort of advice would you give to those maybe young folks, or maybe those folks that are looking to change their career, somebody that has that bug that says, you know what, I'm tired of working for XYZ, now I want to go do my own thing. What advice would you give that new, fresh entrepreneur?
The fresh entrepreneur first write things down. I wrote everything down, and I prioritized what were the things that I wanted to do. I did a lot of research. You got to do what other people don't do to get what other people don't have. And so this came through a lot of research. I would walk the streets. I would spend time at the library. I would go to Barnes and Nobles and look for very specific industry magazines I will go to conferences. I will invest in conferences in order to familiarize myself with that industry. And then even for the school, I didn't have a degree in education. I enrolled on a certificate program at NYU to see if that field was something that I was really going to thrive in, even though my parents come from education. And so I spent a lot of my extra time not watching TV, not shopping, I missed a lot of events. I spent it really focused on the drive that I had. And then be consistent. You have to be consistent to get to where you're going. You're going to get 10 or 20 no's before you get a yes. And you have to be prepared that every no is just fine-tuning the way you ask your questions for the next one. So call it training ground, right? And know, okay, what did I get wrong in that question? What did I get right? What were some of the things I was missing? And then you build on that, right? I didn't start with excellent credit when I was 18 or 19 years old. My parents didn't teach me that. But then I knew that I wanted to build it. So I built it slowly. I ended up putting everything on time. I bought my first car, high interest, paid it on time. And that then allowed me to buy my first home. And bought my first home by myself at a time where people were not buying their first home. And so it is important to be consistent and to understand that you may not be able to accomplish it right in the same town that you're in, but there is a town somewhere in New York or in Long Island or in the United States where your dream can happen. Be open to doing that.
That's excellent advice. I think a lot of times people get desperate and they want to do something or they go by the whim, right? They feel that today I'm going to be, I don't know, I'm going to bake the best cookies ever and I'm going to sell them. I'm going to be the next famous Amos,
Yes.
And then tomorrow they wake up and then I want to do something else. I'm going to be the next Steve Jobs and so on and so forth. So I think consistency is great advice.
Yes.
Writing things down is great advice. Oftentimes we have great thoughts and we don't write them down. And then later on it's like, what was that thing that I thought about?
Yes.
So I appreciate the time that you've spent here with us today.
Thank you.
I want to ask you 2 more questions.
Okay.
Our time is almost up, but I can't close this section without asking, what's next for Beyond Basics?
Beyond Basic Learning right now works in a 3-prong approach. I have a company with our husband called Hines Enterprises. We're the food vendors for the Riverhead Raceway. We're also into real estate right now, so we're doing a lot of Airbnb. And this fall, I'm getting published in 2 articles, trade magazines that speak on how to engage children in urban setting to love nature.
Oh, beautiful.
So I'm working also on a children's book that is supposed to coincide in the fall. So there's different things that's going on in my life right now, and I'm excited about it and excited to be able to move into this part of my life.
If somebody needed to get a hold of you because they love your approach, maybe they want to pick your brain a little bit and ask for more advice, I'm volunteering you.
Yes.
But how would they be able to get a hold of you?
I'm in LinkedIn at
Okay.
Zuleika Hines, Zuleika Hines, Hines. If you look at Beyond Basic Learning, I have my website is still there, www.beyondbasiclearning.com, and my contact information is found there as well.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you
You're
for
welcome.
spending time with us today. I mean, your story is beautiful.
Thank you.
The 30, 40 minutes that we've spent with you do not do it justice.
Thank you.
I want to go ahead and ask if it's okay. Would you come back maybe to do a second
Absolutely.
part?
I would love to.
Maybe once you launch your book or you're ready
Yes.
to launch your
Yes.
book, maybe we can
Yes.
talk a little bit about it.
Absolutely.
Maybe we could even do a reading.
We haven't even touched the surface, so that's
I would
pretty
love
great.
to spend at least one more episode with
I would
you.
love that. That would be great.
I think your story is phenomenal. I
Thank
think
you.
people get, part of what we like to do here at the show is not just talk about boring finances,
Mm-hmm.
right? The topic can be somewhat tasking and daunting sometimes, but we want to also talk about things like, hey, look at what happens if you try. Look at what happens if you educate yourself.
Absolutely.
Look at what happens if you put a little bit of effort in it. In fact, that's how I usually end the show. I usually say, to prosper is possible.
Yes.
You have to educate yourself. You have to proponérselo.
Do it, no?
Yeah, you have to set a goal for yourself. You have to want it, right?
Yes.
And then you have to put, at the end of the day, it's not going to work unless you put effort into
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
So hopefully today you've liked the show that we've shared with you today, the time that we shared here with Zuleika today. If you did, please give this video a like. Don't forget to share it. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Help us grow. Subscribe. Make sure that people get to hear this beautiful message that we were a part of today. With that, I'll say goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.